Hey guys, I'm Levi Gates and welcome to DETALKS. Today we're going to talk about something that affects detailers of any type. We're going to talk about interiors and getting all the nooks and crannies. And with me today, fellow detailer as well as Optimum Western Regional Manager, Mr. Dan Williams. Thank you, Dan, for coming.
Thank you. How are you doing?
Good, man. So this is something that a lot of guys seem to have questions about on the internet, as well as like just in other forums. The questions of people feel like you have to remove all the seats to get everything out of a car. Me in a shop situation, I never pulled a seat.
I gotta say,
and you're a mobile detailer for a number of years.
I took baby seats out of the car.
Yeah, that's about all I did.
And even with those, I wouldn't put them back in because of liability reasons. Yep. If anything were to go wrong, I didn't.
Yeah, and that's what I did. I'd pull them and give them back to. I'd clean them. I'd give them back to the customers, and then I'd let them put them in for the same reason.
And before we get into all the nooks and crannies of the car, how do the parents let those car seats get so dirty? I mean, they got to put their baby in there, their offspring.
Yeah, it's pretty gross, some of them. So if you have kids in your car seats, try and keep them clean. I have a little shop vac. I like to double check at least once a week and just vacuum out the Cheerios and popcorn.
Yeah, I think that cushion part can go right in the washing machine.
That too. Some of them are pretty nasty. So, but that nastiness on a smaller level up here is actually far greater down below. Things get trapped under mats. People just forget. Their kids drop stuff. I found chicken nuggets. I found apples that have been rotted under people's seats. I actually had an old lady once call and go, I just bought this car. It's 2 weeks old. It stinks. It smells so bad. I don't even know what happened. I took it to the dealership. They need me to bring it to you and get it clean. I said, all right. So she makes the appointment. She brings it in. I put her in a loaner. She leaves. We pull her car in. We wash it. As we're going through her interior, pulling her floor mats out, I reach under the seat, pull out a to-go box of food, open it up. There's a hamburger completely encased in mold and French fries, and it was a half-eaten hamburger. And I was like, I bet that's the smell right there.
That nice fluffy grayish mold.
Fluffy grayish green mold. I pulled that, and it was just under the seat, and I pulled it out. It was very visible, and pulled it out and was like, set it over. We took pictures of it. I took a picture. I put it back. Took a picture of it. Pulled it back out. Threw it away. And then we went through, dug underneath her seats. We had our lights. We looked. Again, this is a brand new car. I wasn't going to tear everything apart. But we did a nice visual inspection. The car was still immaculate. And so we pulled that. We vacuumed, and then we just touched up the carpets here and there a little bit for her. And then we put an ozone generator in, ran it for about 30 minutes or so. Cleaned it up. The whole time the car was in the shop, maybe less than 2 hours, an hour and a half at the max. Called her up and said, car's ready to go. Didn't smell anymore. But then I gave her the photos. I showed her the photos on my phone and I emailed them to her. And she picked it up and she was so embarrassed that she had never once checked the backseat of her car. So anybody can have this problem.
Did they figure out whose sandwich it was?
Yeah, it was one of her best friends. They went to lunch earlier the week before, so she was going to call her friend and see if she could pay for that. But her friend had just left her food and didn't realize it, and she didn't think about it. So anybody can leave anything under a car. Now, if it's a wreck, like if it's a flood car that has had mud or they got to replace the carpet or some damage, then I see getting under the seats, getting the seats taken out. But that's a big job.
Yeah, there's electronic stuff in all the modern seats now. It's I personally.
Well, and there's equipment. If you've got the right equipment and tools, you shouldn't have to ever pull a seat unless it's a necessity in the sense that the customers request that. And even then, you want to be careful. You want to make sure that you're pulling a seat that, one, electronics, you know how to handle that. Two, you want to make sure that the bolts that you're going to pull out of the seat can go back in. Sometimes those bolts are one-way only bolts. So once they go in and you take them back out, they're not going to go back in.
How in the heck does one go about figuring out if they're going to go back in without taking it off?
You need to find that out. A lot of it is you can talk to a mechanic. You can find a service bulletin on that kind of stuff. You can talk to the dealership on that. A lot of that is for safety purposes. It's part of the safety systems involved in the vehicle. And in that sense, you may have to purchase new bolts from the dealer to put those back into the seats because you end up voiding a warranty or damaging a safety system of the car as it's intended.
I think another situation where you might have to take the seats out is mold remediation, where the whole mold got underneath all of the whole carpet shell and it needs to be replaced.
And that's a big job.
It really is. And with a job that's something like that, I mean, you want to wear proper respirator things for yourself, and it's not a job for a new person to really take on.
No, and for that, sometimes in most states, you need to make sure that you are licensed and insured for biohazard jobs, for mold removal. There's certain things you've got to watch out for. You need to know your local laws as to whether or not you can do those things. Otherwise, you're putting yourself at risk, you're putting your shop at risk. And it's just, I don't know, I see a lot of risks to removing seats from people's interiors just so they can get all the stuff in the carpet. I find tools that I like to use. I've got long-nosed air guns so that I can get underneath and in between the center console and the cushions. I always make sure I can move the seat forward and back, and I make sure I know how far in I can reach on either side. I like using a sprayer with the Optimum carpet fabric clean and protect in because I can just get in there, spray that area. If I can't get my shampooer in, but I can get a hand and a scrub brush in there. And I've never had an issue.
No, and I'll say, for Nooks and Crannies, I used to do the cars for DEA in San Diego. And the very first time I went there, although this was probably them testing me, but I detailed the full detail on a car, and I found a little baggie with some white powder in it, like jammed way down in there. Now I know that they'd had the dogs go through that car, so either I'm better than the dogs at finding stuff in the Nooks and Crannies, or they were just like putting that in there to see if who the heck would take that. I mean, even if that was your inclination from when you're in the belly of the beast right there at the DEA, for goodness sakes.
You'd be surprised. I found a lot of different things when you start digging in people's cars and the things that you find under seats. And we got a lot of trade-ins, and there were some amazing things that you didn't know people drove around in their cars with all the time.
And that's, for sure. Some that we can and some that we cannot talk about. I always find it best when I would open up the car, vacuum it, or get the big chunks out, the big pieces, and then I would, not having an air compressor because of being mobile, I'd turn my vacuum around backwards and whoosh, hit a blowout and blow a lot of the stuff out from underneath the seats. If I was going to be doing a full detail, my steamer, my dry vapor steamer, would go down in there, and gosh, sometimes you would vacuum the whole car, go in there with the steamer, and it blows so much more stuff out, it looks like you almost didn't even vacuum.
And that's how I would do it with my guys, is we would we'd open the car up, pull everything, and make sure we'd slide the seats forward. We'd make sure we got all the heavy stuff, slide the seats forward, and then my guys would go in with the air guns. And they'd start from the back shelf of where the speaker tray is, and they'd blow all the bugs and everything out of there, and then they'd blow out the seats to the footwells, and we just work our way forward till we were up to the front passenger section. We just blow everything that we could out. Then we'd get started. But yeah, you're right. There were some times where we'd vacuum and vacuum and vacuum, get it all cleaned out, and then the next step is going through and cleaning, and we're blowing again, and it's like we didn't even vacuum the car. It's like, oh my gosh.
And what's another one of the nooks and crannies that might get missed? Maybe the area of the car that collects things like, I don't know, Cheetos, cheese, and lipstick?
Yeah, so the side of the seat is a big one, right in between your center consoles. I was telling a story to these guys that I was once on a road trip with my wife, and I looked down, and I was in the passenger seat, she was driving, and I look over, and the side of her seat had this orangey pink stain on it, and I was racking my brain in my head, because as a detailer I like to also pretend that I'm a detective, and I'm trying to figure out I wonder how this weird scratch on this A-pillar got there. I wonder, and then I start doing these plots. I feel like Sherlock Holmes. I'm like 10 steps ahead trying to figure out like how this worked out. And so I'm racking my brain, and we're driving, and I'm watching, and I'm like, orange and pink, and how is it on the side of the seat? And I'm thinking, and I'm just like, that is such a weird color combo. And then I'm like, that's a crayon. We didn't have kids. I was like, maybe my nieces and nephews. And then we pull over at a gas station. We stop. We fill up. My wife gets herself a snack. It's a bag of Cheetos. She puts it in the center console. She's driving, and she's got her Cheetos, and she's eating her Cheetos as she's talking to me, and we're telling a story. And I watch her touch her lips with the Cheeto in her hand, touches her lips, and then grabs the next one and keeps touching her lips. Well, now she's got to do something with her fingers, so she just wipes it off on the seat. And when I realized there's the orange and there's the pink, and it was like a reddish pink. It was the lipstick that she was wearing. So it was the Cheetos and the lipstick had gotten on the side of the seat. And you see that. We had a buddy that came in. His parents own a burger joint, and it was fries. And the oil from just working in the burger joint, flipping burgers, making fries, he'd get that all over his pants. And when he would sit in his car after work, just the grease that had accumulated on his pants that wasn't anything, just over and over continuously had worked its way into the seats. And it's because it's just in the air. It just clings to the fabrics, and the fabrics rub against each other. We're like, what is all over these seats? It was French fry oil.
Yeah,
grease.
somebody who works in a restaurant might destroy the carpets in their house and the floor mat in their car too because of all the grease that gets on there. I used to work in restaurants.
Yeah. The other thing is the spare tire area. The bottom well. Always check that. You'll find, even on like dealership cars, check them, because the dealers won't check them half the time, or the customers forget to clean that out. What we do is, if we find any personal stuff, I mean, we found money, we found silver, we found all kinds of stuff, and you put it, you bag it, and you keep it. And then after a few months, if no one's called to collect it, then my guys would get it. So it was always fun to find certain treasures. I've always heard a story of an old detailer that found some money in the back of a rental car. He was cleaning the back seats, and he opened up, he saw like one of the panels was pulled away, and he pulled it open the rest of the way because he was trying to close it all back up to make it look uniform. And he pulled it, and so he was like, I can't get this. So he started pulling the pins because he was going to lay that back carpet layment. He pulled it out. There's about $1,700 in cash shoved under there, and it was a rental car.
I would never steal from one of my customers. I've found like jewelry and given it back to them. They're like, oh, I didn't even know I lost this, and like all kinds of things. But if I was cleaning a rental car and I found stashed in there, I don't know. That might be a party.
He said he took it, but we found jewelry. We've had customers very excited, or I've had customers say, if you find this, I'll give whoever finds it $50, to the point that my guys have been in the office hearing the customer say that, and they're fighting each other to get out to go start digging in the car before we've even detailed it, before the customer hasn't even gotten in the rental and left. They're there digging for it. So always try and check. One thing I liked doing was I'd go over center consoles with my guys. Some center consoles have have a pull out, and there's another container or compartment down there.
Well, I missed one of those one time. Like I missed it, and they called me back. They were like, what have you done? And like the car was immaculate, other than there was like a separate compartment underneath that I didn't see. Yeah,
and I've told customers, if you don't clean out your center console, I'd always ask them, we're just going to pull everything out of the contents of it and put it in a bag if you're okay with that. And if they weren't, we just leave it alone. But if we cleaned it out, I wanted to make sure there was nothing else that came out, and that was one of my little quality control steps with my guys, to the point that one day I pulled out it was on a dealership car that was going back to a dealership for sale on their lot. It was a trade-in, and we pulled a piece out. I pulled 3 or 4 pieces out of this center console that literally just lifted out. I'm not saying to disassemble it. It just you just grabbed it and pulled it out. There was a $20 bill sitting right there when we pulled it out, and it wasn't like it was wedged or stuck, but it was like, hey, $20. Like, you could have had it and you didn't look at it. So key is always keep an eye out, not only for your customer's sake, but sometimes for the guys you work for, their sake, because you never know. They may call, they may be concerned. You might find something that they lost and they loved. They're very excited to see it.
I've found like big stacks of money you know, and giving it to the person, and they're like, I wondered where I put that, and I was like, I wonder how you did not know where you put that, or how you were not looking for it frantically.
Yeah, well, one thing we did that was fun was we started getting sandwich bags, and we would put all the customers' change in the sandwich bags. So if they had change in their cup holder or center console, we'd always take it, or their ashtray, and we'd just shove it in there. So that way they had it. Sometimes you'd get a customer that would go like, oh man, you got all that change? Ah, well, here, and they give it to you as a tip. They like that you were nice enough to at least contain it for them. So you never know, it's always fun. And coins on the ground, one thing we did was start saving them. It was an easy way to have a little extra money, was coins that you find when you blow out of people's cars and random stuff.
Here's another area that's like one of my favorite places to clean on the inside of a car, and it was when I'd use a dry vapor steam cleaner, but the indention where it says press on their seatbelt, and you just blast through there, and it takes all that dirt that's all crunched down in there.
Makes a huge difference.
It really does.
It really brings that last level up. So if you guys have any other tips and tricks and things that maybe we overlooked, or you want to let somebody else know, or you got a funny story of something you found in someone's car, I'd love to hear it. You can email me at levi@theragcompany.com or comment below. Dan, thanks for coming on and being on here for this.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Make sure you check out Dan's podcast, the Optimum Synergy Podcast. It debuts every week. You can find it on iTunes and Stitcher. Make sure you stay tuned for more videos right here on the Rag Company YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.